That is so good. Good evening, everyone. We got a special guest here with us tonight, Mr. Nate Ridgeway. We got folks starting to come in from Facebook and YouTube, so let us know in the comments where you're watching from. I think it's mostly Facebook right now. I'm going to reshare this on my good old Facebook, so everybody just hit the share button because, you know, we got to share and got to fight the algorithm. You got to fight for your right to be seen.
That's the truth.
Yeah, man. All right, so for Nate's fans who hopefully are watching, and I know you shared it in the group. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Gabriel Bello, and I met Nate, I think 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, pretty recently.
Yeah, wasn't terribly long ago at our mutual brother's father's funeral. So our friend Jonathan Rushing, his father, Mr. Troy Rushing, went on to be with the Lord, and Nate and I don't even know what it was, how we connected at that service.
I know how we connected, man, because you were great on Hammond organ. And then at the end of the service, I heard like the saxophone. And so I started looking around trying to see like who's playing the saxophone. And I was like, hold up. That cat that's playing the organ is playing the saxophone too at the same time. And I was like, I got to say hello and get to know this guy. That's how we ended up talking at the service. I had to get to know you, man.
I just remember like we somehow, some way, you know, you told me you were attending a Nazarite or Nazarene church, and you got really healthy and you did music, and I was like, we need to talk. I think, you know, there was just a mutual connection there, you know, just one of those Holy Ghost things. So, you know, we actually haven't, this is actually like our first conversation, so you all get to be privy to our first conversation.
Yeah.
But I figured, cool. I've had so many of my conversations, I'm like, man, I wish I should have just live streamed this. So I'm trying to get in the habit of just scheduling my calls, and then, hey, let's just have our conversation out there for the world, because most of the time, I mean, it's gonna be about Jesus anyway. So, and especially when I started listening to your record, I think I got halfway through, and then I went back. Like, this first song just reminds me so much of PFR. And then, you know, I started following you on Facebook, and you're posting all your wins, and I'm like, dude, this dude's doing some amazing stuff. So, yeah, so we're going to start at where you are right now and then go all the way back to the beginning. So for those of y'all, you know, that's the whole name of the thing. I try to be as clickbaity as possible, because you got to do what you got to do to get eyeballs, as Nate knows. Because he posted, he just recently hit 100,000 streams on good old Spotify. So that gets a... But then he said, you know, that only equated to about $300. So,
I love it.
Yeah, man, take us back to the beginning. So, where do you come from? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Church, music, the whole thing. Kind of give us like a quick version of the backstory.
Yeah, man. So I actually grew up not far from where you are now. I grew up over in Statesville, North Carolina. Wasn't born there, but moved there when I was like just before kindergarten. So for all practical purposes, that's home, kindergarten through high school. And my dad was a pastor. In the early 90s, I had gone off to college, and he had gotten a call to come to a church plant in Atlanta. And so he and my mom were relocating to Atlanta. They had a guy, I think, doing music for him. I don't even remember his name. And he and his wife were there for a couple of years. They were doing kind of a very traditional package kind of a thing. And something happened. Like he, not something bad, something good happened. Like he got a full-time job somewhere else in the country, and you know, relocated because he had been in seminary and was looking for a full-time occupation kind of a thing. And so the church was looking for a music guy, and my dad didn't really want to hire me because I was his kid. And he started, you know, making phone calls up here to Cleveland, Tennessee, which is sort of the hub for the denomination that we're a part of. And He called a couple of the like main music directors in the denomination and called the head of the music department at the university. And every single one of them kept giving him the same answer. They're like, well, man, have you heard your son? He's pretty good. You should hire him. And so after 4 phone calls and 4 different people telling him you should hire your son, he actually hired me. So I started commuting back and forth on Wednesdays and weekends from Cleveland, Tennessee to Atlanta, Georgia. And then eventually ended up just moving down there. So was at that church for a long time. I think that was my longest tenure. Since then, I've been at like 3 different churches. Currently at a Church of the Nazarene, little church called the Church House, which is super cool. Just a super cool vibe. Real family church. Reminds me of going to church when I was a kid and growing up. Real sense of community, real sense of family, hanging out, connecting.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. But I was an 80s kid, dude. I grew up listening to like 80s pop and 80s rock, and I love that stuff, and that style was in me. Listen to a lot of old like 80s Christian rock too, and Christian metal from that era.
Petra.
Yeah, man, I loved that era of music, but I had like all these other songs in me too that were like songs about love and life and emotions that I had felt at some point in the journey. Like I love the old Chicago and Journey and Toto and
Oh,
Earth, Wind and
yes.
Fire, that kind of stuff too. And so um, finally decided to explore some of that music and some of the songs that I'd written through the years and things that were starting to bubble up currently. And so that's where Emancipation of a Heart came.
And this is your first full album that you released digitally, or your first full album? Because I saw you had some EPs and some singles.
This is my very first full length solo record. Years ago, I did like some records for other people, did like a record with an ensemble from church that we released on CD and stuff. But like in terms of first full length, like solo project, it's like my vision, my production value, my songwriting. Like this is my jam.
And when did you record this record?
We started recording. I think we actually hit record in August of 21 over in Muscle Shoals. I'm actually representing tonight totally accidentally. Didn't mean to do that, but I've kind of really fallen in love with the Muscle Shoals area and the Muscle Shoals community. A lot of great old soul and R&B and later on Southern rock.
Very famous.
Interestingly enough,
And you
a
recorded
lot
at
of
the Muscle Shoals?
I recorded at 2 different places. The place that I really dig hanging out the most currently is called East Avalon Recorders. I also did some stuff at Fame, which is awesome. And there's a lot of other great studios in the area too. But yeah, man, kind of fallen in love with that place. Also, interesting, a lot of people don't know, but a lot of really cool early 80s CCM ended up coming out of Muscle Shoals too.
Such as?
Because well, like I know Will McFarlane is kind of one of the adopted Swampers since the original guy that used to play guitar passed away. Will's been cutting records for 40 years in that town now. Lenny LeBlanc, who did like all the
Oh,
80s, like
dude, I'm a Lenny LeBlanc, pure heart. I could sing you that whole album backwards and forwards. And everybody knows most people know there's None Like You, but that's not even. I'm not going to say it's not the best song, but there's so many amazing songs on that whole album.
Yeah, dude. And so Lenny's been playing like with everybody and for everybody for years and years and years, in addition to his own stuff. Because like I know he toured with Ron Canoli back in the day, with like Abraham Laboriel on bass and all. I mean, those cats were bad to the bone. And but he got saved out of the Jesus movement. Will McFarlane got saved out of there were like a lot of these cats that were doing secular music and touring big time with major label artists, that because of the Jesus movement, they got saved separate from one another. And then they kind of found out about each other. And a lot of them kind of settled into that Shoals market. So, in fact, Lenny, there's a guy named Scott Todd that has played a good bit of guitar with Lenny on tour. And he's actually been touring with Jason Upton more recently. And he did a good bit of work for me on the next record that we're actually working on right now. Scott's made.
That's crazy. So Lenny LeBlanc is out of Alabama?
Yeah, man. He leads worship over at Faith Church in Florence, just on the north side of the river there.
That's crazy. That's a guy on my like hit list to interview. I've got to interview Dr. Ron Canoli once, and I'm hoping to do it again because, an hour is just not enough with
No.
it's just not enough. I mean, with what those men have done. Um, so this is like a pop rock record, or is it just like how did you label it? Because it's not. I know as Christians, as believers, it's we don't want to Christianize everything, but then if it's doesn't have Jesus every other word, we can't call it a Christian record. It's where it's this weird place to create music, or we're made to feel like it's this weird place. So
It is.
expound.
Yeah, man. I mean, it is a weird place because, like, I'm a churchman, dude. My dad was a pastor. My two grandfathers were pastors. One of my great granddads, my grandp Ridgeway, was pastor. My great grandmother Sally was a Methodist woman who went to a Pentecostal tent revival and got the Holy Ghost over in Mississippi and became a female preacher. So I come from like a lineage of people in ministry and pastoring, and I love it. I'm a churchman. Like I will always be a churchman to the core. And yet I also observe that there is this kind of like Christianese, that has blossomed out of the community of faith that like in some ways we should absolutely be separate and like come out from among them and be separate, right? In some ways we should be different, but then it's like we became different in some really weird ways that made us almost like Frankensteins, and so, growing up as a kid in the 80s and liking so much, I mean, I had people trying to put Southern gospel in front of me, and I'm listening to that. And then I'm listening to Toto, bro. And I'm like,
Bro, you ain't got to
oh,
tell me. You know I have a Toto tribute band, right?
come on, baby. I love it. I know. I sniffed you out. I
Yeah.
love it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was like one of those things like, why can we not talk? I mean, like, even the Bible talks about some of the stuff that some of these cats are like singing about. I mean, Christians do in fact fall in love. We do in fact get the ushy gushies. We do in fact go through relationship challenges. We do in fact go through contemplations about life. We do in fact have uh, varying views of social issues, depending on where we are in our journey. I mean, like we're real people that have these real thoughts and real feelings and intertanglements and toilings inside of ourselves, and it's like, why can't we sing about that stuff? I absolutely love the worship movement. And in some ways, I feel like it's like not completely satisfying the church at the same time. Holy. It's partially satisfying, but not holy. It's not a complete thing. It's like this, bro. It's like if a pastor is always only preaching about healing. And that's all he ever preaches about. Oh, we're gonna get people healed.
Or salvation.
Yeah, or if they just preaching salvation all the time, like to the same 68 people every Sunday. Like, yo, bro, they all saved, dude.
Yep.
Some of them need to get healed or something,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that like I literally sat down at the kitchen table at my mom and dad's house. My dad was a pastor. He passed away from COVID. Literally the week that I came home from my first week of tracking that record, on Sunday night I got home. Monday night he passed away
Mm.
from COVID. I was in the spot where Dwayne Allman cut the guitar solo for Wilson Pickett's version of Hey Jude, in the spot where Southern Rock was born, singing a song that I had written for my dad, when I got the call from his pulmonologist saying, hey, things are not looking good. Your dad's taking a turn for the worse. And the engineer at Fame Studio being like, hey, man, do you have like your cell phone on there or something? Like, we're getting weird. And I was like, yeah, hold on, time out. So I take the call from the hospital, and I literally just had to like throw down the headphones, man, and take a walk. And just, I got emotional for a good long while, made it tough. And, but I sat down like with my dad and with my mom and a couple of good Christian advice, like my producer, Gabriel, asking like for permission. Like, is it okay? Like, that I do this? Like, let me play these songs for you? And like, is this an okay thing? Like, that is, I think, one of the negative impacts, maybe. I don't ever like to scold the church too harshly, man, because it's God's bride. And I think that the bride of Christ takes a real hard beating from a lot of people these days. So I don't want to do that. I'm a churchman. But it's like there has been this tone in the body of Christ, in the community of faith, like you can't do anything that doesn't fit this certain format or whatever. So I had to go to my people and be like, hey, is this okay that I do this? It was that much of a struggle for me.
Mm. Yeah, it's a fine line, especially for those of us that lead in praise and worship, which most of us that are gifted in music have a heart for and have a desire for. But exactly like you said, um, if you're judging the tree by its fruit, and we all will, we grew up with people just wagging their. I mean, it was somebody that posted the other day, and the they posted basically like, if you're playing secular music on the weekend, then you're going to church and playing for the Lord on Sunday, you need to repent and you need to stop playing in the church because you're a hypocrite. And it's like, and the comments were it was a it was a bloody mess.
Bro, it
because
makes you want to
because
pull your hat down over your eyes and tuck back in the bushes, you know?
oh yeah, definitely Homer Simpson, just like,
Yeah.
I didn't. I just emojied. That's I just turn Egyptian. Just give me some. I just put some hieroglyphics, and you can interpret what you mean. But I mean, there was a lot of people that were not musicians that were. How do you expect these people to make a living? Especially when most churches, especially churches like that or congregations, I rather should say, they don't believe that musicians should be compensated at all.
Right.
And that's a whole other conversation. But it's okay. So you're gifted. God has gifted you with this thing. You're Andre Segovia. You are world class, and you should relegate your gift to this little shoebox because that's what God wants you to do with what He's given you. He wants you to hide it under a bushel. You know,
Mm.
um, but I also understand the other side of it, where, and that's why I want to get to the how you're doing what you're doing, because I'm wanting to connect independent music, Christian music creators, or Christians who are music creators. I mean, isn't that funny? Hold up, I'm going to stop that thought. Isn't it funny how many believers there are in the music industry, and yet
Yeah.
it continues to put out such filth? I mean, isn't that ridiculous? Like, a lot of us are, playing on these records, producing this stuff, and now, I'm not saying that you and I are putting out filth, but I mean, I've gotten calls and played on stuff, and then, oh, that's what they sang on that. That's what they did on it. It's most of the time it's just standard songs, just people's life
Yeah.
experiences. Um,
Yeah.
but it's interesting that there are so many believers, and I think I don't know, dichotomy, diaspora, some kind of separation's about to happen. Like, there was a thing, pretty he's not famous, but he's well known. Smooth jazz saxophonist made a comment. He gave up his affiliation with the RIAA or whatever, the Grammy nominated. That whole. He's like, this is so filthy. Like, that last Grammy thing was so filthy and disgusting. He's like, I'm not gonna have it. It was like a 6-post thing long on Instagram, and it was beautiful. It wasn't condemning. It wasn't angry, but it was just like, I can no longer be part of this, because this is no longer about music or music excellence. This is about clicks and fakeness and filth and garbage. And this is not music. Is supposed to bring beauty. Art is supposed to elevate people, not let's shock as many people as we can. And he's a believer, and he didn't even go into that. And he's a strong believer. And I was like, yeah, I think a separation's coming, because, man, like, we all used to enjoy Motown. Even the people that, and it's funny because that's the first place I go when I hear people make that argument. I'm like, did you ever listen to to secular music? Well, yeah, of course. Do you like Motown? Oh yeah, Motown's great. Really? Oh, so if they're playing Motown at the supermarket, you don't have a problem with it? You'll probably sing along? Oh, yeah, My Girl, somebody's dancing. You go to a wedding and they want to dance to My Girl for the first dance or something like that, or father-daughter dance. Is there a problem with that? Oh, no, 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 no. So what's the problem? And then they start to think, and then they shut their
I
mouth.
think that's the important thing, man, is to get people think, because like I don't want to play on stuff that's filthy and vulgar. I'm
None
sure
of
you
us
don't
do.
either, you know. And so we get to pick and choose. We can pick and choose what we want to do. Just because I choose to do some stuff that may not be considered Christian by some people's definition. Although I think that love songs can, I mean, a love song can be just as Christian as whatever. Um, but it doesn't. You can't throw us into this generalized category of, oh, you're doing secular music now, because I'm not doing, like, especially some of this like really vulgar hip hop. A lot of country music is starting to lean that way too now in the current meta. I don't have to be a part of that stuff. I get to pick and choose as a Christian artist what I want to do and what I don't.
Or just a Christian, just as a believer who makes. And this is kind of the thing that I don't know how to formulate this question for every one of my guests. But this is actually one of the things that I want to actually talk to Ron Canoli about, because he and I think he's specifically talking about music for the church, church music. When I interviewed him, he talked about the music industry being a distraction, and this will kind of take us into the whole streaming thing and the rates of pay, because now it's, I don't even know. The record companies are folding left and right, and this is why they're buying up all these legacy catalogs, because while they make 100 times the rate. So like if you were, I did a deal. I don't really talk about this publicly. Actually, this might be the first time I've talked about it publicly, but I actually did a deal last year where they re-released one of my songs. It was Sony, and their rate was literally 100 times greater than my independent rate with Spotify. 100 times, bro. So that means you're $300 times 100.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
game changing.
Grand.
But it's still not like, it's not you're going to go out and buy a house. But yeah, we're going to just do this for all the people up there that can't do the math. So 300 times 100, that's 30 grand.
30 grand. You'd pay off your car.
Well, yeah, you pay some bills, and you can kind of put it towards another record, and that's just on one streaming platform. So
yeah, that's a big thing for artists too, is just to be able to continue to do what we love and want to do. And you just made a great point, I think, a while ago when you were talking about, we're trying to get paid and make a living or find ways to get there, or even just to be an expression of who we are. And it's sad to say that, like, the church doesn't pay for that. It just doesn't, unless you get on the Christian labels in mass are almost becoming as superficial as the secular labels with the way that they treat and handle artists and the kind of stuff that they'll put out.
I would say more so. I would say they're more
I've got a
superficial.
couple of artists in mind that I don't want to say because some of your audience or even my audience might like those artists, but I listen to some of that stuff and I'm like, that's really music, you guys? Like that. And I've been to the show, and it's just like a show.
You can be honest and name names, brother. We can, because we're not. I don't hate. I work with with some of these big church groups, and I can be critical and still be loving. And actually, I'm working with some of them to make like, hey man, let's add some horns to this. Let's add some things to this to try to take it beyond just this formula of, like my last song, I should have wore the shirt. The Jesus loves, Jesus deserves more than 4 chords. But you're right, and I don't think it's a secret now. And more people are starting to talk about it, just how uncreative Christian music has become. When I was in Nashville, let me see, early 2000s, so almost 20 years ago now, they were really pulling back on signing anything that wasn't a church. And they basically, the word was getting out that Word and other labels were following suit, that if you weren't a church group or like some kind of church praise and worship thing, you weren't getting signed. And that's because they knew that they could game the system. They'd seen that model done with Hillsong and then Lakewood. They have 10,000 people at their congregation. They can hit at the number ones because their own churches will buy this album. So they're top of the charts for the first month, which gets us a bunch of free press and all this stuff that people talk about it. And we don't have to work as hard. We don't have to spend as much money. And it's a built-in market.
Easy for, and all those labels are secularly owned too. Like Word Music is not Christian owned. They're secularly owned. That's something else that the body of Christ needs to know. It's like all of this.
Say it again, bro.
It's owned by some secular conglomerate, and it may not even in how to get more money. And listen, hey, God bless them. If they want to go get more money, that's fine. But Christian musicians have to also find ways to get paid to make a living. We also have to find ways to be expressive because God put a unique expression in us. And that expression is not necessarily to meet the demands of the 2003 Christian record label way of doing things, you know? And so, my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think with what you're doing and what you were able to do, so your record came out in April this year?
I think March 17th.
March
March
17th.
17th.
Okay, so April, May, June. In 3 months, because we just got to July, so we're not going to count July. So in 3 months, you got 100,000 streams just on Spotify. And what I'm wanting you to do, because I'm actually interviewing a amazing Christian group that I want you to check out, and eventually we'll have. I'd like to do like a once a month, start getting some of these independent Christians that are music creators to come together, have discussions, and share because we need to support each other, and we do it through community. These girls, they're called Zoetic. Two girls are from Arizona. The girl that plays piano, she's got like a jazz degree, jazz composition. She is phenomenal. The girl that sings with her has this beautiful Broadway voice. I mean, super eclectic, dude. And they have been trying to break in, and she finally, I told her, I was like, sis, I'd been trying to tell her for like over a year. I was like, I'm not, if the opportunity comes and somebody wants to sign you, pray about it. Fantastic. I was like, but we don't fit the mold. We play more than four chords, so we are instantly disbarred from consideration. Like I have been told by Christian radio stations, what's that instrument at the beginning of your song? That's a saxophone. Oh, that doesn't fit our format. We're sorry, we can't play it. I have been told that, man. So,
Yeah.
like, explain how did you do this, man? Because I mean, this is your first full album, so you don't have 100,000 fans out there that you just were able to go out and put on the mailing list and be like, hey, everybody, listen to my song for the next few weeks. And how did you do this?
I had this moment several months ago, maybe longer than that. Maybe it's been over a year ago. There's been this buzzword among musicians. They're like, why would you go get a label? Promote your own music so that, you can get paid the lion's share instead of them getting the lion's share. And at first I was like, yeah, that's what I need to do. I don't want any label getting my lion's share. I want to get the lion's share. So that's where I was. And then one day it hit me, Gabriel. A lion's share of what?
Of nothing.
Right? So the lion's share of nothing is nothing. And so it kind of helped me to it didn't change the direction that I wanted to go, but it helped to readjust uh my spectacles a little bit and the lens through
The
which I was
motivation,
looking.
yeah.
And so I asked myself this question, okay, well, what is it then that a label does? Like, what do labels do to promote an artist? Well, I tell you what they do. They get behind them with a lot of money and with a lot of contacts. And so I thought, okay, I don't have a lot of money and I don't have a lot of contacts, but if this is the thing that I say that I want, I do have to pony up the dough and I've got to be willing to reach out to contacts. And so, all the way from my Kickstarter campaign, it was old school, make a written list of every human that I can think of. Put a phone number beside them if I have it. If not, go to Facebook or Instagram to see if I have them on social media so I can leave a voice shot. And I picked up the phone and I started calling. Hey, listen, I'm doing a record. Don't know if it's your jam or not. You may not want to support, but I am looking for some people that would be willing to open up their hearts to what I'm doing. I'd love to send you a little sample. You can check it out, see if you like it or not. I'd love if you'd consider, sponsoring me in my Kickstarter campaign. If not, no big deal. Bless you. And I made a list of over 400 people, and I either called or voice shot so that I didn't do any texting, voice shot so they could hear my voice in the excitement. I got their phone numbers and I personally connected with over 400 humans and raised money. And then I do a really good job of nurturing. I have a Facebook group. I do a good job of nurturing fans. I'm running ads now. I'm putting money into advertisement the same way a label would. I don't
Yep.
have $1 million to put in, but I have a little. So I run Facebook ads. I run Instagram ads. There's not a day that goes by that I don't have brand new names in my inbox listening to my stuff saying, hey, I really dig it. Or, dude, great job. Not my jam. I don't listen to that kind of stuff, but good luck. But a whole bunch of them are like, man, I love that song. I'd love to hear more. And instantly they get a voice shot. I'm in there so they can hear my tone of voice, my smiling, and it's work, man. Like it's work. It's old fashioned elbow grease, but that human to human thing that I think that people need right now more than ever before because they've got so much digital data just
Yep.
coming at them. But it's just been that reconnaissance work, bro, of just like going back and hitting the grassroots, but in a new school way with the tech tools that we have, like a cell phone and voice shots and things like that.
I think that's absolutely brilliant because you're 100% right. The model has been for the indie creator, the email list, the funnel, and I can tell you I've spent the money, I've taken the courses, a lot of it I've been able to apply, and I actually do quite a bit of work now marketing through social media for other companies. But as far as for musicians, you're 100% right, man. Like people, they respond to video better than they do the written word than emails, and the voice shot. That's brilliant. That's 100% brilliant.
Yeah, it's really paid dividends, and I've got now people from 20 years older than me to 35 years younger than me that are listening to my stuff. Like you get these kids on Instagram, man, and they're like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I can't believe that a creator actually reached out to me. I listened to your song." I had a kid up in Toronto, Canada, that like shot me a video of her and all her friends at their lunchroom table before school got out of them like playing my song "Here I Fall" and singing it to me.
That's yeah, that's and
Cool.
see that's worth more than money.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
it doesn't happen if you're not interacting with them. A
yeah,
sales funnel can do that.
brother, that is all right. So, independent music creators, we're gonna have to cut this. Got to make sure I cut this part of the interview out because that's what you just gave, bro. That's better than gold. That's brother. That's like that's beyond platinum, man. That's what is it? It's not cobalt. What's one of the most expensive ores that you can pull out of the
Rhodium,
earth? Huh?
rhodium, palladium.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. It's radioactive. It's gonna, because I didn't know how to market my last single. And I knew anybody that hears the title of it, I get a reaction of it. And I'm actually the single that came out already is a single version. It's not the full version of the song. The full version I still am recording. I have people from all over the world recording solos on it. So we're going to test this out. We're going to put Nate to task because I have tons of contacts. I've got an email list that's I don't know, 4 or 5 thousand people on it, plus Lord knows how many hundreds of people on my phone. And any musician I've told that song, Christian or not, when they hear the name of the single, they're like, they honestly, like if they're a musician, their first reaction is they laugh. But it's
Sure.
not like
Yeah.
a funny. They're not laughing at it. They laugh because they we all feel that way. All of popular music has been just so dumbed down, which I mean that's why I love that I keep going that back to your first track because it's just oh my gosh, man. It's there's music in it. There's music in it, It's not formulaic.
Yeah, wait till you hear the next record, man. It's gonna blow your socks off. The horn charts are unbelievable.
Hey, if you need somebody to cut horns, I know a guy.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. The horns were actually already cut and done before I met you. I've got a guy named Vinny Shashelski over in Nashville that's got like all the cast, like the new Indiana Jones film that's like in theaters right
Oh
now.
yeah.
There's a couple places where you hear this amazing French horn stuff with a girl that played French horn on that track played on my record.
Oh,
She's banger good. John Hinchy, who played trombone for me. I mean, the dude like scored an entire orchestra piece and conducted it at Abbey Road in London and played. It's so wild, man. Like the Lord has blessed me with these amazing, amazing players that are killer. And dude, but they'll like come down to Muscle Shoals and they're like in jeans and t-shirts. They're like, "Hey man, how's it going?" And we'll sit around at lunch and have a slice of pizza together. And they're just great human beings that have just done excellent work. They've done big stuff, but not that whole like snooty. Let me give you my resume.
yeah.
Like I have to ask some of the other players to tell me that guy's resume because they won't talk about themselves.
No, because it's a job, and really for the musician, it's the music. It's not the only time you you throw out the stuff is, when you're trying to get a when you're trying to get a job, like, hey man, I want to get out. Hey, we're thinking about having you play on this film. What have you done? Well, I've done this and this and this and that. But when you're just talking to a guy like, yeah, I've been recording for 30 years. I've done some stuff, worked with some people, you know. But
Yeah.
that's amazing, man. And I'm praying that these discussions lead to folks like us bringing this level of musicianship and music back into the church and through the church. I mean, we're supposed to be the
It,
light of the world, right?
we are. I mean, it's possible. It can happen. I'll tell you this: when I was in Atlanta, um, at the church that I served there for a long time, there was this awesome season. Of course, we were in Northeast Atlanta. Um, during the age of the tech sector, like that area just really exploded with international people from all over the world. So our church grew to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people from 34 nations of the world. But I can think back even now and remember like those Sundays where I had my Puerto Rican buddy Bob, playing congas and jazz trombone, and Patrick behind me, he was from Jamaica and he could play any style of guitar, funk, jazz, country, rock, pop, hit like anything you wanted, he could throw down. I mean, we just had a great band, and here was the big kicker though: we had amazing players. None of that mattered without a congregation and a pastor that would allow the musicians to be musicians and not have to do the formula. And so, dude, it was nothing for us to like cut down like solo breakdowns. You know what I'm saying? And it was like it would be like you being across the street from me and me just giving you the look and the nod, and it's your turn, bro. And you just tear it up. And we would do that because they understood that it wasn't about our egos. It was about us fulfilling our God call, man. Like he put all that in us to get the stuff out, which is a whole lot more than I'll even say this. I don't even know that the 3 chord song or the 4 chord song bothers me as much as you can only do it this way.
Yes.
Because Paul McCartney said, "Give me 3 chords and I can write you a hit song." But it's what's being played over there, like what's going on in this jambalaya that we got happening here, like who's
Yes.
doing what, and being able to bring it to life in a special, in an innovative way. I think that's what we crave.
Yeah, well, and it's not I'm playing these 3 chords because the Rolling Stones played these 3 chords and Eric Clapton played these 3 chords, so I have to write that a song like that because he wrote it and everybody likes it and it's on the radio and people are buying that record, and they're doing this, and so I have to do that because this is what people like. I mean, up until man, I mean, disco, you kind of had a lot of copycatting, but then disco was put out of its misery by none other than what's hold up, I can say Chuck Mangione, literally. It was an instrumental jazz song that killed disco. And then you have Go King of the Hill. It's an amazing song. That whole album, I grew up with that
Yeah,
LP, dude. Red shirt,
yeah,
hat, smiling face, holding his flugelhorn. And and then the 80s was just a mixed bag, and the 90s to me is one of the most, it wasn't necessarily more diverse than the 70s, but we listen, back in the day, rock people listened to rock, country people listened to country, and R&B. But in the 90s, man, we listened to everything because VH1 and MTV, you'd have a Shania Twain song, then you'd have a Nate Dogg and Warren G song, and then you'd have the, Boys to Men, and then you'd have Celine Dion, then you'd have Whitney Houston, and you just have this whole cornucopia of stuff. And then you listen to the radio, and they're like, well, we got to play everything because all these songs are hot right now. So, you went from a top 10 to a top 40
yeah.
because they had to have that many songs because it was so diverse. And now we have diversity, but I mean, every song sounds the same.
I mean, I feel like the more that they honk that horn, the less effective it is. Our church in Atlanta, we had people in our church from 34 nations of the world. In fact, if you joined our congregation the Sunday that you became a member, if we didn't have your national flag hanging in our sanctuary, your flag got hung. And you know what? We never tried to be diverse. Nobody ever said, "Hey, we need to be more diverse in this church." It just happened because people just loved each other, and we just loved Jesus, and just got along, and it happened. So, I mean, whenever the Lord ordains it and people are just on that same vibe and wavelength with what he's doing, it just happens, man. You know? And it also made sense to our area. You know, it made sense to where we were. We were a very diverse area. I think that there's this cry of diversity is not sincere, and that's why it's not working, and it's counterintuitive. It actually produces the opposite result of what they're wanting, because it makes people do this. Yeah, yeah, we need diversity. Well, already there's an angry spirit. That's not going to produce love and harmony and folks getting together, man. You know.
Nate's preaching. He preached right there, man. That
But
was
in the shoals, dude, in the shoals in the '60s, whenever like the nation was being torn apart over racial strife, they were hanging out together in the studios over what? Writing some great songs and playing some great music.
same thing in Motown. You know, people
Yep.
think all the Motown players were black. Dude, like Bob Babbitt, I think it's Bob Babbitt, like one of the white bass players, he played on half the stuff that we all know. And we all think, oh, it's James Jamerson. It's like, actually, you know,
Yeah. Aretha Franklin went to Muscle Shoals because she wanted to get some of them black cats down there on record, got there and found out they were all white. And that was the beautiful thing about the music, was that it was just a jambalaya. And everybody got along over the music.
and that honestly, see, the music precedes the movement. And this is why people like us need to push. I mean, this wasn't my intention of why I wanted to have you on, but I think this is the reason of why the Lord wanted you to be on. And, you know, for the few that are here watching that will receive this, in the 60s, exactly like you're talking about, like what preceded the rebellion, the free sex, free drugs, free love, it was the music. The music always pronounces what's going to happen in the culture and the society.
Yes.
And if we want to see a change, I mean, that's a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine. He actually he called me. We had like a 3-hour conversation that spurred from, like, he wanted to know my heart behind the Jesus Deserves More Than Four Chords. And when it was all after we went round and round and round, he's like, you know, I hear you, I understand, but how are you going to change this stuff? I was like, I wrote a song. I did what I am doing, what I can do. I wrote a song and I took it off of my computer because it was actually written and mostly recorded years ago. And I just didn't feel like it was the right time to put it out. Or I was, you know, curious, as, you know, not sure what it would do, if it would do anything. So I think this is how we change, and not change the world in the you know, the corny sense. You know, we can change the world. Okay, Michael Jackson, be the man in the mirror. But no, really, man. People are. I look at independent music creators like Jacob Collier, like Snarky Puppy, Band of Magdala. And this is mostly in the jazz world because that's my deal. But there's a lot of independent music creators that they're building. You know, they're self-sustaining, and I think, I don't know how, you know, I know $300 off Spotify don't sustain nothing, but I believe that you can quickly roll this into something that will be self-sustaining, where you're putting out music and it's not costing you anything, and you're able to pay the other bills. Because that's the thing people don't realize. It's like, oh man, if you signed a record deal, you got that 30 grand. Well, then you paid for the record. Okay, how am I supposed to pay my mortgage and groceries and gas bills?
You know, and coming after that 30 grand, by the way, they front you that money, but they're coming after it.
Oh, dude, that's a loan. People don't know. People don't know that's a loan, and they're like the government. They invent and they inflate. Oh, well, this costs this much, and promoting this costs this much. Like, they'll pay somebody, okay, we're going to pay you $5,000 to work on this guy's social media for a month, but they're going to charge you 10. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, they love bankrolling to bank rob people.
Yes, they do. Man, I got to give a big shout out. I've got a buddy of mine who is like one of the most amazing engineer and producers over in the Muscle Shoals area. He's actually watching us right now.
No kidding.
And he was texting me. He's like, man, he's like on a late night drive home. I don't know if he's coming back from the studio. Might even be coming back from Nashville down there, but he's watching us. And he said, Jesus deserves more than four chords.
Hey, what's his name?
His name is Grant, man. Grant is awesome. Grant Walden, he's an amazing dude and super creative, bro. He takes stuff to tape really well and his mix down. Like I've heard stuff, bro, that people have paid to have professionally mixed and then bring it to Grant because they're like, yeah, what wasn't quite what I was looking for. Can you fix it? And then he makes it like, whoo, it's smoking. He's bad to the bone,
Well, Grant, we're gonna have to get you in on some of these conversations, man, so you can tell your story and contribute because the beautiful here's the crazy thing, man, and this is what I want you to help encourage. I'm trying to encourage. Who was I talking to the other day? Oh, it's my voice coach, my vocal coach.
man.
I am pushing her to get on like doing live streams. Like she is incredible, her knowledge of the human voice and the physiology. Like this woman helped me go from where I didn't know I was about to quit singing, bro. My voice
Oh,
was that I went from singing Stevie Wonder, like Stevie Wonder from my Stevie Wonder tribute show, to barely being able to make it through the show and just like I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna quit. I can't.
wow.
I've lost it. You know, I had a double hernia and sang incorrectly for a year. I sang on that for a year, and I told her I was like, "You have so much knowledge and information that these other I see vocal people on YouTube all the time with huge followings, and they don't know half of what you know, and it's because they have just put themselves out there. And
Yeah.
this is 2023. Why in the world are you just going to be a name on a liner note when liner notes don't even exist when you could just be on Instagram and YouTube and just sharing your gift? I mean, you know, and it's not about, well, you know, so you can get more famous or get more work. It's like, dude, so you can share what God has given you and you can help people. I told her, I said, it's not about you getting 100 more students or being able to charge 10 times as much. It's you can actually help people. You can,
Yeah,
go ahead.
this is an attitude that we've got to correct among capable and competent people. It's not, and we've been through this season in where marketing has permeated every different online space, teaching us you need to be charging for your value. You need to make sure you're right. And I've done that. I used to do coaching and I got paid big money for big, per hourly rate and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes there's that stuff coming around that you just give for free. One of the best things that ever happened to me and my attitude and my ego, Gabriel, was God found a way to link me into directing a homeschooler's theater company. And I get paid nothing for 9 months of the year. It is volunteer. And it was a great wake up call to me that, you know what? Sometimes we're just supposed to put great value into the world. Sometimes we're just supposed to like cast our bread on the water and see if it brings a return. And maybe it does, and maybe it doesn't monetarily, but maybe it does in other ways. And
Yeah.
maybe it blesses somebody else and helps them on their journey. We've got to correct that attitude, man. And every time I run into some like young punk kid who's like on this train of I got to be paid my how much does the gig pay? I mean, we have to ask those kinds of questions. But at the end of the
There's a
day,
time
it's
and a
like
place for it.
there is, but you know what? There's also a time and a place to say, man, happy to serve, happy to help, happy to bless the, happy to honor the church, happy to go out and give everything that I know away for free. That's always kind of been my coaching style, by the way, whether I'm coaching like music stuff or business. It's like give away my best value for free so that anybody that wants to come along and glean can pick up all they want and cost them nothing but time.
Yep.
And then if somebody wants to go deeper into a relationship one on one, well, then I can get paid for my time and my expertise in that regard or in a group setting or something like that.
Yeah.
But we've got to get out of this whole thing of like, everything's about making money and being worried. And the opposite is true too, being worried that people might think, oh, I'm trying to make money. Well, that's okay to make money too.
Yes.
Like, let's just go do great stuff. And I think that that's what you're trying to stir up, man. That's what you're trying to do with all these like different independent Christian artists out here. You're trying to stir up the gifts that are in the community and get people to come out boldly and to pronounce to the world who they are and what they're doing and to be a part of fanning the flames of that. So, dude, big ups to you for that, man. Thank you so
100,
much.
man. That's actually one of my favorite gospel songs by Colorado Mass Choir, "Stir Up the Gift." You know,
Mhm.
and it's exactly right, and that's what I told Zoetic. I said, the numbers are the numbers. The metrics are metrics, but they do not determine our value. And this is what the Holy Spirit got onto me last year. I'm in the middle of this thing with Sony. It's so funny, dude. I thought the single tanked. I thought it didn't do anything. I was like, another failure. You know, I found out weeks later it was actually crushing on radio. But during that
Whoa.
time, like I was doing, they told me we need you to do XYZ on your social media. So I was doing XYZ. But, you know, social media is about authenticity. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I know this. I know the 4 C's: consistently create compelling content, you know, and it's not compelling if it's not authentic. You got to be genuine. And I'm a genuine sold out for Jesus, dude. I live in church. I love the word. This is what, this is my passion. So that's what I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about. That's going to be a lot of what I play, even along with the smooth jazz. I mean, I'll go and play just the two of us and sing a Toto tune and do my Stevie Wonder thing. But every other thing is going to be something about the gospel. They were like, this is off brand. This is brand confusion. You know, what in the world is this guy? And like one of the top guys, like, I can't remember his name. It's probably a good thing I forgot. But when he told me the name, I went and looked this guy up, and I'm like, this guy looked at my stuff and was complimentary, and also like, I mean, boop, 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 beep. I mean, he really was just. And I got in my, and I just kind of looked over my career in music, and I'm like, I'm a failure. Why do I continue to do this? And dude, the Holy Spirit gently but sternly, and that's how the Lord speaks to me, because that's how my dad was. So he kind of balances the stern of what I'm used to hearing with his grace. And he said, if you see you put a song out and you have 14 streams, but somebody got saved, somebody got healed, is that enough for you? And brother, it took me 2 weeks to recover from that,
Wow.
because you're talking about, you're talking a lot about your perspective and changing how you're viewing stuff, and that transformed. And we say this type of stuff, but we don't really mean it. We say, well, it's for the Lord, but we'll go out and we have entire ministries that are practicing marketing methods, not spiritual methods, to grow the church. Sorry, not sorry. It's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's been going on for 30 years.
It's because they're trying to grow the church instead of growing the church.
Yes. They're trying to go a church, not the church. And that kind of just finally broke. That was like the last vestige of this industry. And granted, it has certainly helped seeing the demoralization and just quality go down of modern music in general. I'm not poking just at the church. I'm just saying in general. You turn on the Grammys 15 years ago, and you'd be like, oh man, that was nice. Wow, that was great. And now it's like, this is garbage.
Yeah.
This is garbage, man.
Yeah.
This is not even fit for, like, animals would run. Like, this would and
When they put up the list of the top 10 songs of like, these are going to be the top record of the year to Grammy, I would go through them and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what you have to offer right
dude,
now?
it makes Rick Beato, it's driving him. I'm very concerned. And it was so funny. I was listening to a group of Reformed, the pastor I was serving under. I was serving at a Presbyterian church for the last year. And he sent me this group of 4 theologians that they talk about, theology. And they did this one about jazz. And actually 2 of the guys on there were like jazz musicians, turns out. And they were talking about, like, well, there's this guy we found. I don't know if you've ever heard of Rick Beato, and I'm like, these guys have heard about Rick Beato. Like, it was, and they were talking about, oh, he's very gifted in music theory and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that guy, I feel like he is going to go on a stream, on a video one day, and his head is just literally going to explode. From my favorite is he did the top 20 now versus 1998. It was like it was 2018. He said the top 20 years ago versus today. And bro, it was the tail end of the 90s, man. Every track sounded different. And in the 2018, everything but one song was nearly identical, just different tempos, different, you know, same sound sets, same 808, 808 or 901 hi-hat, auto tune to heck and back. And he was
Bro,
fit to be tied, dude. He was holding every curse word back.
beat detector and auto tune. Just put them on and let them run.
Dude, now it's just going to be AI, which people are like, oh, AI is going to. I feel, this actually, I might have to. Before I give you my thought, like, what's your thoughts on what AI could do for the music industry, like good, bad, indifferent, or you just don't even care? Like, tell me what you think about it.
And we were having my son and I were having some great conversations just about on how AI may or may not impact the academic world. And so of course musicians were all thinking about it. I still believe that a person who is coming from a place of passion, whether it's great pain and suffering or great triumph in life, will always write a better song than any computer does. And it's unfortunate that there is a money-making machine out there that is just kind of pressing to the new 14 to 18-year-olds what it is that they're supposed to like. But there will always be those of us out here that will seek out great stuff, and we will bring it to forbear and pull it up to the front. And it'll make its way, man. It'll make its way known. But I do think that it puts an auspices on our shoulders as creative musicians to make sure that we don't have the attitude that just because I made great music and stuck it out on Spotify, that people are just supposed to find it. It's like a needle in a haystack, 100,000 songs a day, right, being uploaded. So we have to put the onus on us where we say, hey, I've worked hard to make this music. Now, am I going to work as hard to bring it to the world? Am I that serious about it? Some people will spend so much time and effort, energy, and money on hours in the studio and the right players and the right producer, and not be willing to put that same amount of money into marketing and ad strategies and things like that. And so, great music is still going to be written. It's still going to be produced and put out there. And the people that are willing to actually, like, not just want the lion's share that the label gets, but are willing to act like a label for themselves. Like, I've got to act like my own label. I got to be my own A&R rep. I got to be my own manager. I got to be my own booking agent. I got to do those things, or be willing to put money or a percentage on the table for those human resources and say, I value you and what you bring to the table. You can take 10% of my career. We got to be willing to do these things so that we can get that great music out there.
Mm-hmm.
So AI is here, man. It's going to be here from now on. Like, it's going to be here from now on. It will not go away. We've not even felt its effects yet. We're starting to. There's a couple of like TikTok songs that have blown up, and they'll do their thing. But you know how it is with TikTok.
Hockey stick, and then it disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really concerned about it, to be honest with you. I felt bad for graphic artists for a few hours. That's as long as my sympathy lasted, because I'm like, welcome to the stinking club, man. Like, do you guys know what we've gone through? Like, I signed my first major label deal when streaming, and my first album, though it charted on Billboard, it was downloaded over 30,000 times in the first year.
Wow.
And that was just from one site that I found it, because I went in there and Googled it one day just to be like, oh man, I wonder, let me just see what all the links are when I put my name in here with this record. And like I went to the dreaded second page of Google and found a download site for my own album, and it had a ticker, and it had been downloaded 30,000 times already. And I'm like, wow, it's been downloaded 30,000 times. And then I was like, whoa, because this is before streaming. You had to buy it on iTunes. So pirating was still a real thing. Yeah. So I'm with you, man. I understand the trepidation, but I'm still formulating a full opinion because I see, and a lot of this stuff is not even true AI. It ain't thinking. It's just, oh, here we go. I was waiting for my Gosling brothers. They heard me say this because they are like anti AI, but they're authors. They're authors, so it's one of those things. Like, it's kind of the same thing with a graphic artist. You can just go out there and spit out a story on Jiggamajay Higgamajay, and then you get the Hollywood movies we've been getting for the last year, and nobody goes to see them. So that's why I'm getting less and less concerned about it and trying to figure out how do I capitalize on this, because exactly like you said, there's no spirit nor soul to it. So it's very easy to distinguish the fake from Miss Honey Badger ears were prickling. That's right, Jonathan. You sound off, man. You sound off in there. And, I actually want to have a live stream with the Goslings and talk about this, the AI. I want to get, because I haven't opposed, but I've been looking into some stuff and talking to some friends, not because I want to be opposed to it, but, just to kind of give the counter argument and counter perspective. Because I think it's just one of those things, like, people were anti-Social Security. There's been a lot of tools that have come out in the last few centuries that people are like, oh, man, that's the devil. We can't touch that. And they got left in the dust. And,
That's right.
If it's
That's
the
right.
devil, yeah, I don't want to have anything to do with it. But if it's just a tool like anything else, I also don't want to get left behind.
It's not the devil, and it's also not a tool that I want to fool with. And then I turn into you. And what you said, I'm not too worried about it. Like, I'm not too worried about it because it's not going to stop me from writing great songs. It's not going to stop me from doing what I'm doing. My buddy Grant just hit back and he said, the more AI, the more desire for human connection. And I think that that's a really great point because, every piece of technology, everything that happens has a consequence. And sometimes I don't even think about consequence in terms of negative or positive. I think about it as just like causistic reactions, right? There's cause and effect.
Yeah.
And so whenever everybody started doing the sales funnel thing, like you were talking about, well, because I did click funnels and I've been to Russell Brunson stuff and all that, I learned all this stuff and it works and it does get results. But then the next thing that you give them that about 10 years, and the next thing that happens is that all the main social influencers start writing books about getting away from B to B and moving toward H to H, which is human to human.
Yeah.
People are craving more human interaction and human connection. And they love seeing the real art and the real creativity. Like Grant's wife is a novelist. His wife has written multiple novels. I'd much rather support her knowing that she wrote that out of her mind and her heart and give her my money than to give somebody money that's created something through AI.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think you're right. Well, it's kind of cool to, and some people like, that was like something, who was it? I think it was Pat Metheny said that it was, it's not, what is it when you do the with a dead body? When you have relations with a dead body. What is that word? It's necro. It's not necromancy. It's not necro something.
I know what you're talking about, though.
Okay, so Pat Metheny, he said that it was that when Kenny G played on a recording like with Louis Armstrong's "What a Wonderful World," but people just necrophilia. It was necrophiliatic. I thought, and now of course the people that hate Kenny G were like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Kenny G is horrible." And I'm like, dude, Kenny G can outplay 90% of the saxophonists on the planet Earth, including this one. That dude is a beast. He knows he played what people wanted to hear and made money. And it took Clive Davis spending millions of dollars. My mentor told me this, of how much money they had to dump into him to make him the instrumental superstar. But I think there's a fascination. Like, it's cool hearing Michael Jackson or Freddie Mercury singing these cool songs. There's a guy that's he has a really funny Instagram and TikTok. Basically taking, like, he took an Elvis. He'll take like these old just icons and he has them singing like Apple Bottom Jeans. It's the stupidest thing. So it's like, oh, you get the funny stuff, and then you get them singing each other's songs. Like, here's Michael Jackson singing a Queen song. Here's Queen singing a Beatles song. Here's them singing this song. And like, oh, that's kind of, man, that's neat. But, like they released a song that, like this fake Drake. I think the guy even called it fake Drake. And I mean, it's honestly, I think what it's going to, listening is Rick Beato, once again, did a great video on this. And I don't think he took it to its logical conclusion. He took it one step, but he didn't take it to its where it's ultimate. It's going to implode the music industry as we know it. I guarantee it, because they already have 360 deals. They already, as Dave Chappelle talked about, they make you sign contracts. I signed one of these, a lighter version of one of these contracts where they own this thing throughout the entire known universe. Okay. So now, what are they going to do with these artists that they put millions of dollars behind? We're going to own your likeness. We're going to own your voice. You're not even going to be you. You're not, when you finish, if and when you walk away from this deal, you are done, because you're no longer going to be able to record as yourself.
Right.
And who's going to want to sign that deal? It's going to be one kind of person. I will do anything. It's the Lady Gagas, and
anything I have to do to be world famous.
Whatever I have to do so people can know my name. And it's sad, because that woman is, she's brilliantly talented, but she wasn't making it as a jazz singer. She loves jazz, dude. She was doing jazz clubs and bars in New York, but she's like, man, I want to make money, and then I wanted to be famous, and she sold her soul to do it. So.
Here's the other thing about some of these AI things that you're talking about, and some of these different voiceovers and cutesy stuff they're doing. Man, it's great for shareables, and everybody wants to hear it once or twice, but I don't want to buy it. Right? My fans are going to buy my record. They're going to stream it, but they're also going to buy it. And you know when they're going to buy it? They're going to buy it because they care about me, and I've invested time in them, and I've took them on a journey, and I let them watch all the rhythm section tracking and us making choices. I let them watch the horns track. I let them in the vocal booth with me when I went live. Let them hear all the missed notes and 82 takes on the same phrase. And I let them be a part of my experience. And they're my fans. They care about me. I cared about them, and I gave them a lot of attention and a lot of ingress into the experience.
Yeah.
And because of that, they'll buy the record. And that's the thing, man, that I think that independent artists, which is who you're speaking to, these independent Christian artists, need to start being willing to get a little bit more scrappy. They're going to have to be willing to get scrappy, put their money where their mouth is, put their time and their money and their energy into figuring out, how do we bring people into this experience with us of what we're doing? And I think the last thing that I would say is more collaboration. More collaboration. The way they big labels would get bands to blow up, they would take 4 or 5 bands. The boy bands, remember, like the boy bands were big back in the day. Like they took all of them originally and put them on tour together.
Yep.
And they just showcased all of that, and they forced it to get big by just force feeding the audience that stuff until they were finally famous. And so we've got to collectively, as I'm being my label and you're playing your label and she's playing her label, we've also got to come together collectively and say, hey, how would we think about this as a union and us doing things together? Push this independent voice to the next level.
Yeah, I think the indie, we actually need to come up with a better term, because by saying independent, you automatically you're pronouncing that I'm doing this on my own by myself. And we have to, we can't, you can't do that, man. This, we ain't in some movie. We are not Arnold Schwarzenegger going to go onto an island and destroy an army of 300 armed South Americans to save our daughter. Jenny, let off some steam, Bennett. It's not going to happen. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us, and collaboration absolutely is key. Yeah, I mean, I would love. It's so funny when I bought this property. In what? In Chris Ken Cox says, "Good points. Y'all think history will repeat itself? In what? In what case, Ken? Do you mean history will repeat itself?" And Jonathan, I do. Jonathan's brother Nick started he started an anti what's an anti AI pledge? Oh, buy human pledge. And put the link in the comments, and I'll share it, Jonathan, so that everybody everywhere can see it. Um, Local strong following. Yeah, back in the day, it was you would go town to town because we didn't have the internet. This is actually what I think a lot of independent creators, until we can find up with a better term, we're kind of missing. Like, we spend so much time working on the art that we don't connect, and we're trying to cultivate a support, you know, that it leaves very little room for that healthy creative. I mean, like, dude, that's what made Motown. Why people will be singing that song. I think we'll be singing some of those songs into eternity, man. That stuff is just good. But you know why that happened? They were all there together all the time. You could go to that little house in Detroit, and it was a little house. And any given day or time, there was a writer, there was a musician, there was a singer, there was a group. It's like you go there one day, it's the Temptations. You go there next day, it's Jackson 5. You go there the next day, it's Stevie Wonder. You go the next day, it's, Diana Ross. And this, it's like, it's bonkers, man. And they're all there writing, playing, producing. And honestly, I am not convinced. Now, I am a bit of I don't even like the term conspiracy theorist because we've been proven right a lot this last 3 years. But I'm just asking questions. But I honestly feel that Motown moving to LA was purposeful to destroy it, because
I
it
feel that.
it it became almost instantaneously irrelevant.
Yeah,
And basically, I don't even know how they're still in existence, to be honest with you, because they really haven't been relevant since Boys to Men.
yeah, yeah.
But the
I'm
collaboration, man, I'm doing stuff, having these conversations. A lot of people, like many of the people that watch my live streams, I've seen them in the comments, or on, like, I'll see them on, like, Instagram with Zoetic, and I'm like, oh, like 4 or 5 of these people they saw this post before I did, and it just
yeah.
makes me smile. It makes me happy because they're writing incredible music. They love the Lord, and this is what it can't be this whole tight-fisted. Well, I can't, you know, and most of us don't have that mentality. But we can't even let it get anywhere near that, because it's not about my fan base. It's like, dude, it's it's good music, man.
I think that we don't think that we have that mentality, because once we engage in conversation, we become way more open, right? There is that part of us like, oh, sure, yeah, let's collaborate. We want to do it, but there is this thing now, as we're all behind our phones and behind our screens so much, that I'm doing my thing, that we do kind of become narrowed unintentionally. And the next thing we know, we are a bit self centered. We are a little bit about me and mine and what I'm doing and what I'm trying to accomplish. It's not an intentional thing. So, what I would call for to any independent artists that are out there that may watch this is that we must choose to become intentional about connection and collaboration. It must be something that we intend to do and will do. And I have to remember, growing up as a kid, dude, I listened to Bon Jovi and Lionel Richie and Def Leppard and Whitney Houston and Metallica and Kenny G and David Sanborn. Like, I like
Oh,
both cats.
come
Like,
on,
this,
man.
it's like
Yeah,
and I love the Yellow Jackets, but I also loved Toto. I mean, I love all that stuff. And so I have to remember that it's okay for my fans to like you. It's okay for my fans to buy your stuff.
that's right.
In fact, if I'm the guy that's out there always fanning the flames of this amazing independent artist and that amazing independent artist and that, then they're like, whoa, this is a generous dude. Like, he's not all wrapped up into himself. He understands that other people need audience. What if I've got a few thousand fans and you've got a few thousand fans and these girls you're talking about got a few thousand fans, and we all find some way to collaborate where we bring them all together. And now instead of selling 1,000 units, you sell 10,000 units or 15,000 or 50,000
It's
units.
exactly what Chris Capstich said. Like at that point, then you are having a summer, then you're having a summer series. And one of the reasons I bought this property, not only to build a studio on it, but one of my closest friends, Phil, I'm actually going to send this to him right now, Phil Hall. Copy the link, and he looked at this property, and this is why you have to surround yourself with people that they see more than what's in front of them. People that have vision. He said, you know what you could do on this property, man? It's like if you're able to get some of the land next to you, he said you could build a small he said you could build an amphitheater here, and you could have like 5,000 people out here and room for parking. And I was like, oh, my mind immediately went to revival and concert series. Because we don't have any, like, I live out in the sticks, bro. I mean, like, I'm just outside of Charlotte, but I might as well be an hour outside. Well, I am almost an hour outside of Charlotte. And, well, there's the Cabarrus County, they have their center over there, but, to have an outdoor amphitheater in Mount Pleasant, North Carolina, independently owned,
Killer.
that would be, and to have music like this, like we're going to have all these just amazing independent music creators that come out, and some of them you're not even going to know it's faith-based. You're just going to be encouraged, and then they're going to talk, and you'll be like, oh, this guy's a Jesus freak. No wonder that music felt so good. I mean, like, that's, and I'm not against, hey man, dude, if you want to write a song in tongues, I'm like, okay, well, if it's anointed, okay, it's only got 4 chords and he's singing in tongues, but I kind of felt the Lord in it, so I'm cool. But when you've done 3 albums like that and it's the same 4 chords and it's the same word in tongues, then I'm like, oh, I might be a little skeptical at that point. But I'm like, man, there's room for everything at the buffet, and even I don't like scallops. I don't do shellfish, but am I going to tell somebody you can't have that on the buffet? You can't have hip hop, you can't have metal. I'm like, no, everybody. That's what Dr. Ron Canoli said on my interview with him. He said, give everybody a piece of this praise.
Yeah, man, for sure. Speaking of good Christian hip hop, I don't know what ever happened to these kids, but there was a group out of, I think, the Detroit area years ago called the Pentecostal Poets, and they were amazing. And so I don't know if any of your viewers out there like can come across them or have heard of them or would know some way to like connect up or something. But man, those young men were unbelievable.
Pentecostal Poets. I'm asking that.
Yeah,
Y'all let me know in the comments. Has anybody ever heard of the Pentecostal Poets?
Yeah, and I've done like some little Google searches and haven't been able to find anything. And they were really amazing freestyle too, man. Like on the spot, they were good.
I think they were called. Jonathan just mentioned Living Color, the black heavy metal band. I think that was their name. To be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So this would have been later than Living Color because I listened to Living Color in high school. This would have been maybe like about the 20-year mark ago, 15 to 20 years ago.
Early 2000s.
Some young guys that were doing rap, and they were really, really good.
Yeah, Christian hip hop is it's a microcosm, and I know like Ruslan, who's become like becoming a well-known Christian YouTuber. And this is what I'm praying will change. I don't know exactly how to do it because I don't want to make merchandise of the people of God, which is why I think we have to do like what you did and like what I've done. Like I've done smooth jazz record, then Christian record, smooth jazz record, then Christian record. And this next album, I've got enough material. I'm sitting on like 3 albums worth of stuff, man. I'm trying to finish, but I don't know if it's, and the problem is when you put it on to release it, you have to categorize it. Like Jesus Deserves More Than 4 Chords. I don't even think I categorized it as Christian. I think I categorized it as jazz. Because it's not even that, because it just doesn't fit in these nice little neat little silos. But I think this is how we move forward because I'm like you. I love doing music ministry for the Lord, meaning, you ain't got to pay me. I enjoy it. It also because not only because it's beautiful, but it's also freeing. If I need to go and do something, I don't have to feel bad because, well, I am a servant of the church and I'm at the house and they're paying me and I'm only got 2 paid Sundays off, so I don't want to miss more than 3 a year. And I don't have to do all that stuff. It's like, hey, I got to be out of town. I'll see you guys, see you next week. But the money has to come from somewhere. And the only time I've really been able to serve as a quote unquote volunteer, even though I was the head of, leading praise and worship, was when I was touring full time, making great money, singing Stevie Wonder stuff and putting out jazz records. And thankfully, I was a part of a ministry that allowed that and encouraged it. And this is what I'm wanting people in the church, and maybe you're in the comments or you're watching this, and let me know in the comments, either if you're watching live or after the fact, why shouldn't it be that way? If you want musicians to play for church for the Lord, why can't they go out and take their gift and use it in the world to make their money? Because the Bible said your gift will make room for you. And I have friends of mine that, God bless them, all they can do and all they is music. They don't really have any other skills. They're amazing musicians, and that's it. They have dedicated their lives to being incredible musicians. What are they going to do if they can't use it in the world, and you're not going to pay them in church? How do they eat? Yeah, I think this is why we have to change the dichotomy. We have to change our way of thinking, man. We have to take our gifts, into the world.
And I want to say this too, Gabriel. I think that we need to change our attitude about it for other reasons besides just musicians needing to make money.
Yeah.
Like, I really do not believe that the Almighty gave me the gift of music only to sing the songs that very churchy people demand that I sing within the four walls of a church. I just don't believe it. The Bible talks about a whole lot of stuff that people don't want to even talk about in church. And in fact, preachers skip passages to not preach around because they don't want to deal with that stuff. And they don't want the head council members saying, well, Pastor, I don't think you should have preached that sermon, and, risk losing their jobs. I mean, so I think that we've got a lot of poop in the brain files in the church for some reason that needs to get scooped out. We need a pooper scooper, bro. We got to scoop some of this shit out. And so I want to get off I agree with you wholeheartedly on the thing about making a living, but I want to even just push that off the table and say to everybody that's watching, I also should be allowed to write songs about just things that are important to me and things that matter to me and stuff about my life or things that I have felt, or, it's an expression out of what's going on inside of me at some point in my journey. And I think that that's important for us to get to do. That's an important thing. Otherwise, one of two things will happen. Either the church will continue to lose some of the best musicians we have from the church,
as we have been for the last 50 years,
or you will have some who will be guilted and shamed enough to stay and always have this mega hole in their life and in their heart that God was making room for, but the church would not, because they were just trapped into just doing this. I'm gonna tell you one of the number one victims. You ready? Church music directors. The role of the church music director in 99% of the churches in this country is not a creative role. It is what is the pastor preaching on Sunday, and what are the songs that are there that are available in the hymn book or the song book to support it? Now let's go rehearse a choir to sing that same stuff, and we regurgitate it for years and years and years because, well, that's a big song, the congregation likes it, seems to move our people, we'll keep doing that one. There's no creative, what creativity is there in that? And there are moments, we pull it on a cool Christmas thing or a cool Easter thing. I'm not minimizing any of that. I'm just saying that it is a prison for a beautifully gifted musician who's got so much creative prowess that wants to write songs and record songs and express life. And we don't allow for it. There's no room for it in the vast majority. Very few. I know of one church personally. I know of one that on their church campus, they actually have a house, and that's the writing and arranging house. And they have a full team of Christian musicians who just get to write and arrange and dream and do beats and make multi tracks for like stems and clicks. Like they get the whole creative process and they get to do things and they're compensated for it full time. I know of one like that. And the pastor doesn't chits them. He pays them well.
Oh
But
boy.
I know
That's
of one.
See, that's yeah. Well, and of course you have, Hillsong, Elevation, Bethel. I'm sure they're all doing that, Brooklyn Tabernacle's probably doing that to an extent. Preston, Prestonwood Baptist was, taking care of Brad Knight. But you're exactly right, man. For every one church that's doing that, there's 1,000 that they don't have a clue. And for every 1,000 that doesn't have a clue, there's 100 that could. They could write their own music. There's a friend of mine. He's got a church. He's a music minister in Florida, and they wrote some songs, and it was great for their congregation. I told him, I was like, man, I'd love to help you because I think there's some things you could have done to take this where it sounded like you guys instead of you guys trying to sound like what's on the radio. But they still were a little different, and they were. And one of my best friends, he writes stuff all the time for, he does like what Ron Canoli would do. Whatever the pastor preaches, he'll write a song, an original song, teach it to the choir, teach it to the band. And so you go to their church on any given Sunday, you're going to hear a song you've never heard before in your life because it's a song from that congregation.
Yeah. I love that.
And people think that we can't do that, or exactly like you said, they're not allowed to. Well, we got to do what people know. We got to do what, what's always been done, or we got to do this. My least favorite is, well, everybody's singing it. There is no quicker way for me to not sing a song and to get out of a spirit-minded Gabriel to the flesh than, well, everybody's singing it. It's real popular. I'm like, dude, that just turns me into like, you want to see what I'm not like? I don't know what I'm like not saved until somebody says that to me. And then I'm like, oh boy, wow. I'm glad I have Jesus in my heart because I'd be a horrible person. Cause I'm just like, no, we're not doing that. I will find reasons. I will rip that song up and down. And it's funny. Actually, one of those songs was that Hillsong tune 100 billion times. So will I.
Yeah. So will I.
Oh yeah, man. They're like, oh man, you see that's blowing up, but we need to do that this Sunday, dude. I went and pulled up the lyrics because I don't sing songs because they're popular. And then I went and I was like, hey, is this talking about evolution here in this second verse? And everybody, like, nobody said anything, dude. It was the most uncomfortable silence. And I relished it. I'm like, say something, because I'm like, dude, we shouldn't even sing this song. Of course, they sang the song, but yeah,
that's a whole other issue that we don't have time to get into tonight. But like taking the time to be diligently discerning about the song theology in our church. There's a lot of songs that I've just opted not to do, and it's typically not the common ones. It's not the ones that the general church has problems with. It's usually other things that I just, because of my theological bent, I look at it and I think that's really just bad theology, not bad writing. I'm not talking about the sloppy wet kisses. I'm not talking about that stuff, right? Because that wasn't even really an issue of theology. That actually was probably pretty good theology in that song if you're really like.
Yeah, if you get into the nitty gritty,
things that are just like. Yeah, if you get in the nitty gritty, I'm talking about the songs that like just theologically, they're just not where I am, and I'm not there because I intentionally have chosen not to be there and don't want my church feasting on that stuff.
Well, it's ignorance begets ignorance, man. That's the problem. We don't disciple people. That's several of my brothers. My brother, Dr. Corey Gaston, he has such a heart to disciple this next generation. Because we just, come to church. Let's play games. Let's do this. Let's sing these. We have young people. We're teaching them to lead worship. And we're not teaching them to lead worship. We're teaching them to do American Idol for the church. And they don't even know. Yes, I said it, and I ain't taking it back because it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth, man. You have people like you don't know how to play two chords. You don't have any scripture memory. Like, you don't understand what it is. You don't. Do you understand? Am I saying you got to have a Bible? 4 year, it's an associate's in Bible. But no, like, let us teach you and train you. Come alongside the adults. I posited this. It bears repeating because I don't know if anybody even on here has heard me say it. I'm pretty sure I've said it in video and live stream, but I need to say this more often. The church started doing this whole crazy thing of, well, the youth are going to have their own service and the youth are going to have their own music. Nothing wrong with that, except now they don't learn or are mentored by the grown-ups. So they don't learn any of the old hymns. They don't learn any of the old courses. They don't learn any music. We don't teach them anything. They just learn everything on their own, which is why everything is so simple and why we have so many songs with bad theology, because they haven't been taught by anybody.
Yeah, we got kids writing them, kids that haven't even read the Bible all the way through cover to cover, that are the #1 songwriters in the church world.
Brother, they haven't even they haven't even cracked it open. They probably couldn't even tell you or quote you John 3:16. And if they could quote it, they couldn't tell you the address. Well, for God so loved the world. Yeah, where is that? Oh, I don't know. Is that like Matthew or, I mean, like that, it's, and hey, I want them to serve. This is the next generation, but we have to disciple them. We got a bunch of loose cannons out here. But this is why those of us, we ain't old yet, brother. You don't have any gray.
Oh.
I have a little bit of gray. But this is why we have to put ourselves out here, because these kids are out here, man, and they're going to learn it from somebody. They're going to learn it from somebody.
Even when I was a teenager going to like youth events and youth rallies, I didn't care how old the guy on the stage was. What was the guy's name? Josh something, that used to come and do like the purity stuff at like Petra concerts and stuff like that back in the day. I mean, I remember seeing that cat doing youth events when he was in his 60s. And guess what? Nobody cared. There was no kid that said, well, I can't listen to him because he's 66 years old.
Dude.
Nobody ever said that or ever thought it. The only thing that kids want is for somebody to step in the gap for them and to tell them the truth. Tell them what's real. Well, yeah, dude, that's all they want, man.
Yeah.
That's all they want.
Well, and point in case. Phil Von Cannon texted me. He said Josh McDowell. I think, is that who you're talking about? Josh McDowell.
Josh McDowell. Yeah, that's him.
There you go.
Yeah,
so,
and I don't know if you guys like him or don't like him. The point that I was just making is that there were thousands and thousands and thousands of kids at these shows, and nobody stopped listening because of his age.
Well, in case in point, I did this on the very first church songs that the church forgot video in the world. They'll roll out when they have Stevie Wonder on a Grammy show or a music award show or Elton John or Paul McCartney. They advertise it featuring blah 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 blah, Stevie Wonder, Paul McCartney, Celine Dion, because holy cow, these are living legends. In the church, it's like, oh yeah, you're old, you're irrelevant. It is so backwards. It blows my mind. And here you are in the world. You have you have guys like Rick Beato that every church musician, if they're serious about playing music and they really love music, they know who Rick Beato is. He's got a whole head full of gray hair. If Rick Beato was the music pastor, you think anybody's going to say anything? But we feel like, well, we got to have the younger, more relevant. And Anthony Marchese's just killing up there. He's like, don't forget the importance of a flipped hairstyle, torn skinny jean sneakers, and a jacket indoors. Yeah, the church is one of the few places where ageism isn't illegal. Yeah. Dude, you're 100% right, man. 100% right. And the funny thing is, they're over there listening to Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson, old man.
Yep.
But man, I got to have me a 20-year-old, exactly, with a V-neck down to here and, the goofy outfits. And I'm like, dude.
68 necklaces.
Oh my gosh, man. And bracelets and tattoos and full of tattoos. It's like, man, you got to be.
My thing is like, just do you, boo. Like if that's authentic, like to who you are, that's cool. But let's also let the guy that wears like the pleated khaki pants and the Dockers and the pocket protector, if he got something to say and it's good, let's let that guy talk too.
Bro, I got in a you know Chris Barger. I got in a little argument in well, it wasn't an argument, but I disagreed with him strongly. It did musicians in a car talking with no coffee, something like that. It was like we're with Jonathan doing a we're going to Mount Rushmore, and we're all in our roofing, because I do the marketing for his roofing company since COVID because I couldn't tour, and love it. If you need a roof, call Elevate Roofing and Exteriors, and we were talking about the Pentecostals of Alexandria, and I didn't realize that those are the same group. That was the church that recorded "Send It On Down" with Jaron Davis.
Yeah, man.
And bro,
Hot
they are
take.
still in suits and ties, and the women are head to toe covered up with dresses, the most modest. Bro, it made me so happy. And Chris was like, "Nah, man, they need to get up off that, man. They need to get with the 20th century and get on some jeans." And I said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, son. That is a lie from." I was like, "Put on a tie, dress up." I was like, "You think we're gonna be going up? You were gonna be going up to the streets of gold?" Dressed anyway,
Right.
I'm like, man, it's ridiculous. You could dress up to meet the president. I mean, come on, man.
It's reverse dressism, dude. Because if you go back 30 years ago, they were telling us you can't wear blue jeans and t-shirts, right? It's like they were, and now that it's it, we're just casting the stone back. It's not fair, man. It's not fair. And that's not love. That's not brotherly, sisterly love.
And I
You
get
know,
it
it's not
where
all that.
people are like, well, just dressing up, then it becomes religious and religion. I'm like, well, it becomes piety. I'm like, yeah, but what's the difference between like piety is no worse than us trying to be something that we're not, and we're wearing this because the world says it's cool. And
Bro, listen, my son is 21 years old and he's a fashion aficionado. He knows where stuff comes from. And we were watching, I'm not going to say names again, one of the foremost,
he's so kind.
biggest young worship leaders that's like been sweeping the nation for the last 3 years in an interview the other day. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I just saw that sweater on Neiman Marcus the other day. Do you know how much that is?" And dude, these guys, like they're dressing like they're all straight, but they're wearing like $5,000 worth of stuff. And so it's the same, it's the same, it can be. Let me say it can be. We got to be careful with our judgment. It can be the same pious attitude that was held with people in a certain tie day, condescending down on people in jeans and t-shirts. But now they're just condescending the other direction, putting down that. So
I'm just like, look, man, let's just be holy. If we're doing it because the world is doing it or because we want to be relevant, let the
bad reason.
message will always be relevant, and let our gifts and the anointing that God has given us, that'll speak. I
Amen.
mean,
Dude, I hate to keep jumping in on this topic.
no, no,
I'm
no,
so
no, no,
sorry.
no. This is what we're here for.
Dude, listen, I used to work for like what at the time was probably one of the largest multi-campus churches in Atlanta many years ago. And it was mandatory, even in the office during the week, that we had to have on jacket and tie. And it was literally putting your homeboy here into depression because like I had the pleated pants and I had the ugly shirts that I didn't like and the ties and the tweed jacket and all like I know you're laughing because you're looking at me now and you're like, whoa. And like it was doing something to me that was like eating me up, right? And we had this really big prayer room in our church, and I loved to go there. It was just awesome. It was an awesome prayer room. And I went in there one day, man, and I just boohooed my guts out to the Lord because I was like, God, me. And I don't have an ugly spirit about it. Like I don't have an ugly attitude. Like this is what I got to do. I'll do it. I don't want to. But this is not at anybody. But I can't keep doing this. And I struggled, Gabriel, the same way with like doing my record. Like is this okay? I was sort of like, is this okay for me to like just be who I am? But that's how what religious spirits can do to us, one way or the other.
Oh yeah,
Right from people who are more conservative to those who are a little bit more chill, or even the other way. And we just got to stop that mess, man, because it puts our brothers and sisters in chains.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
it's on me to deal with what God requires of me. And it's not for me to tell other people that God requires of that. What it's on me to do as a discipler is to teach those who come for me for discipleship, hey, you've got to meet with the Lord on what it is that he requires of you.
Yep.
That's the jam right there.
Yep. And the exception to the rule is skinny jeans, and ladies, you got to be covered up. Guys,
you mean like my little spandex jeans, skinny jeans, not allowed to wear those?
as long as they're not so skinny that we can see your junk. And the same thing with the ladies. It's like, as long as you're covered up.
With all that junk.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right, man. Like my former youth pastor, Bill Cloud, like he goes up and he's just like, I mean, he looks like he just walked out of a Western saloon half the time. I mean, just, jeans and some kind of like flannel shirt. And, sometimes he's wearing like almost like a fishing vest. And I'm like, it works. It works for him, so.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't look at him, and he's never been a shirt and tie type of dude. I'm a shirt and type, but exactly your point, man. When it's like, well, you got to dress hip and you got to dress cool. It's like, yeah, but I like suits and ties. Can I just wear a suit and tie? No, you got to be hip and you got to be cool. And I'm like, but I'm not 20.
Yeah, man. We're too hung up and caught up on that stuff. I guess my final blow on that whole topic would be, first and foremost, is who I'm being or what I'm doing dishonoring the Lord? And then secondly, I'm not talking about just like making somebody mad who's always mad about stuff, but like, am I being a stumbling block to someone in some way?
Yeah.
And dude, like, if I'm being a stumbling block to someone in some way, I'll stop whatever that is. I don't have to wear my skinny jeans. I do. But if somebody doesn't want me to, I don't have to wear my skinny jeans on Sunday. When I went to college and I was going to be playing keyboards for one of the choirs, it was a Christian university. And I had in fact, when you saw me several weeks ago, I had longer hair. I just got it cut, but I had long hair. And I remember the director, he's like, hey man, sometimes we go into some kind of conservative churches, some of them may feel weird about your hair. How do you feel about it? So when I came back to my audition the next day, I had cut it like preppy short. And he freaked out because he thought that I took it as him saying, you need to go cut your hair. But I didn't take it at all. I was just making a point.
Yeah.
Like, you can't let that stand between.
That's humility, man.
The message,
Yeah. Absolutely. And in the same token, I think this is why Christian music has become so bland, because it's like, well, if it's Christian, it has to, this is what Christian music sounds like. Everybody from Elevation to Grace Community Church, which is John MacArthur's church, like I've heard him say, this is what heaven sounds like. And I'm like, brother, you're the guy that's telling everybody that these people that are saying they've gone to heaven and back are a bunch of liars. And you're going to say, this is the sound of heaven. Now,
how do you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So could I make an argument for you based on science, not preference, for orchestral music and choral music? Yes. But look at the diversity in the speciation of just what is on this planet. And you're going to tell me God only likes this, the one who made this? And the funny thing is, if you go back to like before the Cambrian explosion wasn't an explosion. Like there was more diversity in all the species before the flood of Noah. So I think there's room once again at the table for the skinny jean, the shirt and tie, the rock and roll, the jazz, the choir, everything. And this is the problem. This is what we're called to fix. Is to call these people like, look, man, praise the Lord, you're singing these songs in churches, you're getting all this church hype up, but let's take this music out into the world. And I look at what Kirk Franklin and like Maverick City have been trying to do, and I'm like, man, you're trying to do the right thing in the wrong way, I think. Because when you say, can you go out there and be a Christian who's a music creator and go out into the marketplace? 100%. But when you're saying like this is a night of worship, oh, by the way, I need $1,500 for these seats up here. This is no longer a worship service. This is a concert, and you should not say this is a worship service You know, you didn't come in and they say this, they've been saying this for 20 years, man. You didn't come in here tonight for a concert. You came in. No, sir. I paid. Listen, when I went to go see Carmen, that was a worship because I didn't pay anything to come in. Okay.
No, I took a can of soup for the homeless. That's all he charged, a can of soup for the homeless.
You know, when I saw him in, one of the big places in Orlando as a kid, that was one of the first times I'd been in a room that big. And I was like, wow. And he didn't charge anything. And, I'm like,
bro, he was proof of concept that nobody else had the guts to follow. But he proved